And that's it. Yeah, Peltz. Nelson Peltz. He's back, isn't he, ladies and gents? Culture, you've been very quiet. I'm going to give you the floor on this. Do you want to explain to everyone what the hell is going on?
Okay, so Nelson Peltz a few months ago, well, about 8 or 9 months ago, kind of went on the warpath with Disney and bought a bunch of shares because he didn't like the direction of the company, and he did have some shares invested. His Trian Management Group is they're financially motivated, is the nicest way to say it. And he was like, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to acquire some shares, and I'm going to request a directorship, not even a board seat, although I'd like one, but I need the ability to see what you're doing and why you're making these decisions because they're not profitable. They're not making the shareholders any money." And he's right. They weren't. All the decisions were very poor. They were based strictly on, the pursuit of social justice and things like that rather than profitability, which means that they weren't doing what is called their fiduciary duty, which is delivering the utmost in profits and so on and so forth to their investors. So they get into a little shouting match. Eventually, Iger relents and he makes some disparaging comments about Peltz, which we'll set aside for the moment. But he relents and says, "You know what? I'm going to give you the things you're asking for. We're going to definitely give you your dividend at the end of the year. Well, it could be a half a cent. Who knows? But we're going to do all these things. We're going to make all these changes." Well, Iger delivered nothing but lip service. And here we are just a few months later, and Peltz is like, "Look, the company is weak. The stock is crashing. I'm going to buy $2.5 billion worth of stock." And that's what he did. And so he's now in either position 5 or position 6 as far as the largest individual shareholder of this corporation, just under all the big boys like State Street, BlackRock, and Vanguard. Vanguard's actually number 1 right now, and they switched places with BlackRock not that long ago. But you also have, I think, Blackstone in there as well. But anyway, he ends up being number 5 or 6. Now, if he partners up and he buddies up with a couple other of his billionaire friends, and he actually pursues individual shareholders' proxies, it's quite possible we could have a full-fledged proxy war that is essentially set to remake Disney because they will acquire several board seats. He's looking right now with his investment to getting 2 or 3 board seats because of his vast ownership, and remove the hand-picked Iger lackeys that are currently operating the company at the board level. And these lackeys include forced labor lovers like the guy that came over from Nike, who used to run Nike as the CEO. So, so Disney's, already got a great track record when it comes to China and, forced labor situations. It's very, very interesting. So Peltz is back. He's causing problems. Take it away, Mr. H.
Well, you said a hell of a lot. Nice rundown. I think what you also missed was you did miss one thing. It's the Ike Perlmutter situation.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It was Ike Perlmutter that helped Peltz, basically.
And he still has those shares. He still has
those
shares.
He has. Was it like 10 billion or something like that? It's a crazy high number.
You'd have to ask Tom, but Ike's not going away. Ike's a player. We talked about this way back when. I'm like, you pissed off the wrong guy. I think he has like 4 billion in stock, but
okay, yeah, maybe. But basically, what happened was when Nelson Peltz was doing this situation, it was Ike Perlmutter that was part of it.
Yeah.
And then once Bob Iger had agreed, no, sorry, okay, we'll turn things around, Peltz. Please stop. We'll turn things around. He relinquished his proxy war. And then Bob Iger immediately turned around and fired Ike Perlmutter, literally like a week later or something like that, which is crazy. I think we said at the time that's not smart. That's really not smart, because now you do have 2 people that can team up. Even just in them, Peltz and Perlmutter, you've got one person that believes in turning Disney around with a serious amount of stock. And then you have the activist investor Nelson Peltz with a pretty serious amount of stock as well.
Yeah.
So, I think that was the only slight thing that you missed, unless there's anything to sort of add on to that I got wrong. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I did a video on this and I said this could absolutely mean the end for Bob Iger. At the very least, it means the end for a fully hand-picked board that won't argue with him. And that alone will cause a severe amount of issues. But it's also how public all of this is. The stock rose, and I would have loved to have got Mikey on board for this, Mexican Iron Man Mike, because the stock rose, and we did a bit with Mike the other day when it was crashing, and immediately this comes out and it's rising, and that speaks volumes because the market has responded to Peltz. I was going to say Perlmutter, but to Peltz coming back on board with massive positivity. Anything to do with Bob Iger and the previous regime tanks stock, absolutely tanks it. Anything that remotely signifies a change of the status quo at Disney raises the stock, and that's the market speaking, and that alone should indicate to anyone with any brains where Disney should be going. It is removing the status quo at Disney at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, there's no other conclusion that you can draw. I also did a video on it. I mean, I think it's going to be for our sphere, this is going to be something that plays out for weeks. We're all going to be participating in it because it's the biggest possible news we can have right now. I mean, even Tom is gaining interest in this right now.
Well, and this comes at a time where Disney is incredibly weak because they have to buy Hulu.
Oh, they're so weak. Yeah. Stop it, Tom. Stop it. I'm gonna call him right now. He's being mean.
It's true though, because again, this comes at a time when they're going to be buying Hulu, so they're up Schitt's Creek there alone, massively at a detriment there.
Oh,
somebody asked me the other day what I do. I say I talk about the everlasting doom of Disney.
Yeah, I do that too
on a daily basis. That's all I do.
Well, what do you think about this then, Tom?
Look, Nelson Peltz is a money man. I agree with everything you guys have just said. Perlmutter was a big part of why Marvel was successful. Love him or hate him. Think what you will about him or say what you will about him. Bob has to learn that it's not about your friends and those who are going to do what you want them to do. You need some people in there who are going to call you out sometimes or say, well, that's not going to work, or we're spending too much money, or we need money, or you need to start making money, or I liked it when we had cocaine and hookers around all the time. Let's get back to that, please. You know, like, yeah, I mean, it's just, it makes sense at this point when Disney is making absolutely no sense, not even 10 cents at this point. I mean, their stock is tanking constantly. Hulu stock, I think, is holding pretty solid or going up, is it not, Culture? And I think they have to pay compared to whatever the stock is at that time. Well, so the more their stock goes down and the more Hulu stays the same or goes up, it's worse for them.
Yeah, right? Comparative value is a real problem for them right now. So, yeah, and again, I mean, they did it to themselves, and they were artificially like trying to suppress the value of Hulu all along, which is something most people weren't paying attention to because they knew that they were going to, after they acquired Fox, they were going to have to buy it. So instead of taking that product international and expanding it, they pushed out Disney Plus instead, when Hulu would have been a much better fit internationally because it would have been.
They bought Hotstar, didn't they?
Yeah, that Hotstar thing was a hot mess.
Which now they're closing down the India part of it or whatever.
Yeah, it came selling it. Yeah, that came with Fox, and they have a buyer in the wings in India.
Okay, I didn't know that came with Fox. I thought they bought it. My bad.
Yeah, and so it's all just a mess. I mean, in India, it's a hot mess, and like I said, you're going forward. You're going forward into probably the worst possible time for Disney when they are absolutely at their weakest. I think Tom pointed that out yesterday. I don't think I've ever seen Disney this weak. It had to have been the 1980s. It had to have been. It had to have been when Roy O made a charge at the board and got a bunch of stockholders to rally around him in much the same way I think Peltz is going to do, and say, you know what,
we're not gonna take it.
You're out of here.
No, we ain't gonna take it.
Yeah, yeah. I foresee this being quite ugly. In terms of the business aspect of things. Long term, it's better for the company if they do end up with obviously Iger saying bye-bye. But there's a lot of more arguable things out there.
I'm assuming you guys have seen The Godfather, right?
Yeah.
What's the one thing that comes between the family and legitimate business? Crime, right? That's the only difference. You fuck with people's money, especially people that, they are not going to sit around and just let it happen. Nelson Peltz is a goddamn gangster. He's going to come in here and he's going to tell you what for. He's going to put some people in some cement shoes figuratively and get rid of them. And as you said, I think you put it the most succinctly in the whole point, Nate, is the biggest point here is he's no longer going to have a bunch of yes men on the board all the damn time. That is the problem we've had for years. And that is why Chapek was never allowed to really do what he could at least attempt to do, try to get the company back into shape.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're completely right, because Chapek had that exactly the same board, and they all agreed as well that Iger could stay on.
They were all secretly listening to Iger anyway and undermining Chapek at every turn, and yeah.
Absolute jokers. So this is perhaps one of the best things to happen to Disney at one of the worst possible times for Disney.
Yeah.
Not for us, but it's the best thing to happen for Disney as a brand. Unequivocally, I think. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
I do wonder whether there's another play, here, maybe. I mean, Nelson Peltz has been buying a bunch of stock when it's been low, obviously. Now he's raised that stock price. Maybe he'll
if
be
he has enough,
market.
Because there's only he's like the fifth person right now, fourth person as far as having the most investment.
He's in fifth or sixth place right now.
It would only take him to get a few of the other people above him, and they might be able to do some kind of corporate takeover.
Well, if he buddies up with Peter Thiel what
about George Lucas and Apple?
Apple isn't going to want any piece of that. It would cause a nightmare for them, I think. But what you could see, the Oracle guy Ellison and his kid who owns Skydance.
I know the company. I kind of know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So his dad owns Oracle and he owns Skydance. I think if he said, "Dad, let's go and get Disney,"
if they got the money, it's not worth that much right now.
Yeah, these are guys that are.
That's what I'm saying. I would say roughly. Well, how much? Okay, here's where we look at this. How much was Fox's stock worth? Does anybody know? If you can look this up, when Disney bought it,
it was a lot of money.
Because that's where I think is we're going to find out what the rough guesstimate would be on this. And my guess is their stock was probably in the somewhere at least over $80 a stock in stock.
71.3 billion it was purchased for.
That was what it was purchased for, but I'm wondering how much the stock was. If it was somewhere between 60 or $70 a share, or if it was more.
God, I don't know.
Because if that's the case, Disney could be looking at getting bought up for like $80 billion, like only $10 billion.
$38 per share.
Wow. So they shouldn't have paid more than 30. See, here's what I'm getting at. They shouldn't have paid more than $38 billion for Fox. Wow. The way I look at it is that you kind of go by that and then you extrapolate that to $1 billion, right? So to me right now, Disney is worth about $80 billion. Think about that. 2 years ago, they were worth probably closer to $200 billion.
That's higher, closer to
higher than that, actually.
Yeah, right.
And I'm being conservative as fuck here.
They were at 330 billion about 2 years ago, and now they're only worth 155.
They ain't gonna get that. No fucking way. And the lower their stock goes, it'll be less. And
well,
less,
the problem is that the stock has rallied on this news. It also rallied on the news, and this is something we don't probably have yet, Nate, is it also rallied on the fact that Iger, and Tom, I just want to say that Iger came out and said specifically that that he was tired and that he was overwhelmed and he was overworked. This has been.
When did he say that?
This was reported today. I'm desperately searching for this article right now. So, but I'm flabbergasted. Yeah, I mean, right now, I don't know, Tom. They paid over twice what the Fox was worth, right? I mean, that's what
I was getting at, basically. Yeah. Pretty close to it. I wouldn't say twice. Well. Probably close to twice.
Yeah,
because if their stock was about $38 million or $38 a share, if they would have sold for about 40 billion, that's like I said, close to like looking at so that's a dollar for dollar kind of thing. Like in this case, though, like you said, because of Disney's a different animal because they got the parks and shit. That's the other thing too.
Different structure.
So you got to keep that into consideration as well. So. Yeah, at the end of the day, I could see, but that's the thing. A hostile takeover is different than a sale.
Yeah, and and again, I mean, I see a proxy war, and then eventually a board thing. So, But there's multiple sources for the story.
And
that
this is where like Mikey or Andre would be kind of
yeah,
useful.
this would be great to have one of the
especially Andre, because he can understand a little bit more about
finance guys
how the corporate takeover kind of shit probably would work. But
yeah,
because we haven't had a major corporate takeover like that in how many years now?
Oh my gosh, it was, I would say the late 90s, early 2000s. It's been a long time. I can't recall one that's happened anytime in the last 15, 20 years. It may have, I just don't recall. And I'm getting older. Let's just be honest. I'm getting old. Very, very old.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for that topic.